All right. Another session in this one is on CDK, AWS CDK. So AWS CDK is short for Cloud Development Kit. Okay. So the AWS CDK is actually developed open source, and it's an open source solution which aims to, I guess, add an extra layer on top of the Cloudformation template. So remember that in your AWS account, you have different services. So you might have an S3 bucket, you might have a Lambda function, you might have a Redshift cluster. And now when you want to set up these resources in your AWS account, you can do it one of two ways, or three ways actually. You could do it through the web console. You could log in through your browser, authenticate, get into the Amazon Web Services account. Then you could click through the console to create each of your components or resources. Another alternative is you could simply use the AWS CLI, right? So here you've got a command line and there's AWS commands, right? So AWS ls, and then that will list out all of the AWS S3 buckets. And you've got other commands to create resources also. So that's another way of doing it. The other way, the third way, is using Cloudformation. And that's largely how we've been deploying a lot of our solutions, is we would write out these template documents, Cloudformation template documents. Let's see if I've got. Right, so we've got these template.yaml files, which define our solutions and all the resources that we need in a specific solution. So let's go down to here. Okay, let's take this for example. Here we've got a logical resource name, and then we're saying this type is AWS API Gateway Service, and it's a REST API resource. Okay, and then once we've defined this bit, then we're saying these are the properties that we want to assign to this resource type. So these are all the configuration items that we could have done through the web console. So the reason why we do it this way is so that each time that we deploy our solution, we know exactly that we're repeating the same configuration items when we're deploying it locally in our development environment, and in base, and in staging environment, and when we eventually get to production, the configuration is all consistent. Okay. Now, one of the main things with Cloudformation templates is it's rather restrictive. So you've got options of defining your Cloudformation templates as YAML, which is the format that you can see here, or you can construct them in JSON. So it's just a different type of format, but in both cases, you're kind of restricted by the general layout and format of the templates. So you don't have things like in other programming languages you might have, whilst you do have condition statements available in Cloudformation templates, you don't have things like loops. So you won't be able to loop through something, and say if you wanted to create a series of S3 buckets that had all the same configuration items and then just had a different number at the end of them. So if we created 10 S3 buckets with different suffixes at the end, you could create a loop to do that. Well, actually in Cloudformation, you don't actually have that functionality. And what you need to do is actually copy and paste the whole section and the configuration item 10 times. And then making sure that the configuration between each of those buckets are the same with the name just being different. Okay. So there's various limitations with the Cloudformation template. And so this is where the CDK comes in. It's there to add another level of abstraction. So I was talking about in Cloudformation, AWS account, resources. And so if you think about a resource type, here is a REST API, that can be kind of thought as a class, right? If you think about object-oriented programming, you have classes and objects and instances of classes, right? So you can think of this as a class. And then the evaluation REST API is an instance of that class. Okay, so they've taken that concept of object-oriented programming and then built out a layer on top of Cloudformation templates. So this is where CDK is. So CDK is available in different languages. So you have the ability to use the whole object-oriented design with TypeScript, JavaScript, Java, Python, and C#. Okay, I've only been using Python, so that's what we're going to walk through today. So kind of like when you're building out an application, you can either write it procedurally or you can use an object-oriented design and build out your classes and then create instances of your classes as objects and whatnot. So the CDK just gives a nice way of everything in your solution to be defined consistently in the same language. So what I've been doing more recently is I've been creating CDK solutions under the Python language, which now allows me to author all of my application code, so like my Lambda functions and everything, plus also the infrastructure that supports the Lambda functions in Python, because all those configuration items are simply references to Python libraries. Okay. So I'll just quickly go through this single page on first steps into a CDK app. And I'll just show you how it kind of gets set up. Okay, so the first thing is we're going to go to our command line. Okay, so I'm just following these examples. So I'm making a directory, cd, just change directory to test app. And then all I'm doing is I'm going to run this command. Okay, so what this did, so Cdk Initialize App. So app is actually a template name, and then language, Python. So I'm just telling it that I want to use the Python programming language. Okay, then all it's done, it's basically setting up my directory with a templated application. And here it's just printing out the README file. And this README file just tells you how to get started. So here it's telling you to set up your Python in virtual environment. Then once that's set up, then activate your virtual environment. So if you've seen one of my previous videos, setting up your virtual environment so it's separated from your main Python environment. So if you want to start afresh with no Python libraries installed, that's when you use a virtual environment. All right, so that's activating it on Windows, and then this is running pip install to install whatever Python libraries are required. And then CDK synth, so this is telling CDK to synthesize your application. Okay, so just on that, so going back, if we're building out a CDK solution, our intent is the CDK solution will help us author our Cloudformation templates, and our Cloudformation templates are the configuration files for deployment that will materialize as AWS resources. Now, the step from going from CDK to CloudFormation, that's called synthesis. You can think of it as translating my Python code into CloudFormation YAML. Okay. And then it's got a few useful commands here: cdk ls, cdk synth, deploy, diff, and docs. Okay. Now it's just looks like it's trying to create my Python environment. Okay. Now once that's all done, so here I've just dir, I've listed all the files in my directory. And so I've got a git ignore to ignore any files that I don't want Git to, I guess, stage and manage. Here I've got my virtual environment. Here I've got a app.py, which is actually the entry point for CDK. And then we've got CDK JSON, README file, the requirements.txt, which is a list of all the Python libraries that I need for my solution. Setup.py, it's also part of metadata and part of the setup. And test._AP. So this is where our stacks and CDK resources will be defined. Okay, let me just go into Visual Code. Okay, so here I have Visual Studio Code. I'm just going to open Terminal. Okay, so this is just the same as command line before. So here I'm in the test app, and all I'm going to do is activate my virtual environment, right? And so once that's activated, then you can see that I've changed my environment to this directory. Then I can see what packages are installed at the moment, right? There shouldn't be anything. Well, there should be only a handful. It's got pip and it's got setup tools installed. It's fine. So there's not much installed. Okay, now for CDK to work, it also needs your AWS CLI to already be authenticated in, right? So this is the AWS CLI, and this is just a command to make sure that I do have access into my environment right now. Okay, so that's just listing all the buckets. Okay. Going back through our solution. So I said that app.py is the entry point for CDK, right? So CDK here, this is the program. And when I run the various commands, CDK commands, it's going to be entering via here. Okay, so it's going to import various things. It's going to look in the test app folder, which is here. Look at the test app stack file, which is this Python file, and it's going to import this class. Okay, so this class is here. And then here, it's just saying, okay, so I want to basically create one instance of this test app stack. Okay. And that will create one instance, and then this is telling it to synthesize the test app stack, or basically all the resources in this solution. Now, I won't go into much detail on this actual solution because this one actually doesn't have any resources defined in here. Okay. This is where you would actually want to define things. So say, for example, you want a Lambda function or S3 bucket, you will start to add them here. What you do, you import the required libraries. So you might be like I don't have it installed. I'll do that in another session. You'd import the required libraries for each of the different resources. So if you want to use S3 buckets, then you would import the library package for S3. You want a Lambda function, you also need another import statement for Lambda resources here. And then you could start to define them all here. Now, once you've defined your, I guess, Cloudformation stack in here, then you can start to run a few CDK commands. So the one that I normally use is Cdk ls. So Cdk ls will list out, actually, I haven't installed. Okay, I just need to install all of the required packages, the Python packages for Cdk to run correctly. Okay, so that's installed everything. And that was, this is actually scanning something. And then this is where, here, this section. So as part of the install requirements, it actually opens up setup.py, and then this will install the core component of CDK, version 1.119. Okay, and then now this should work. Okay, so what this has done, I've asked it to list out all the different stacks in my solution. Right, so it's got test AP stack, and what it's done, it's basically gone in here, said, this is a stack that's available in your solution. I'm going to list it as something that you can deploy. Right? Now, this is where we'll have to continue this further on another session, since there is actually nothing in here right now. Cdk synth test AP stack. So what this will do, it would generate the equivalent Cloudformation template. See? So Cdk synthesize this stack, and what is printed out is the whole Cloudformation template required to deploy all the resources in your solution. Now, at the moment, even though there's so much stuff here, there's actually nothing that's getting deployed. It's all just metadata. So if you see here, Cdk metadata, and then these are just conditions, and there's actually nothing that's getting deployed in this solution. Okay. Now, if you wanted to, say, deploy it, and you could run Cdk deploy and the name of the stack, and then when you want to destroy it, you run the same sort of command, Cdk destroy, and then that would, so what this would do in the background, it would hook in via Aws Cli into your Amazon account, and then deploy the above template, the above Cloudformation template into Cloudformation, and then deploy your resources into your account. And then destroy would simply do the reverse. It'd hook in via Aws Cli into your account, into Cloudformation, and then delete the Cloudformation stack. That's related to this one. I think that's all I wanted to cover for this session. All right, I'll cover a more extensive solution in another session. All right, for now, thanks.